Imagine waking up every morning with a heavy weight in your chest, knowing that the next 8 to 10 hours will be spent doing something you have to do rather than something you want to do. You count down the hours until evening, when your real life supposedly begins. You live for weekends, for vacations, for retirement, always waiting for permission to truly live. But even in those moments of freedom, you feel exhausted, drained from the effort of enduring the parts of life you have labeled as work. Have you ever wondered why this happens? Why do we accept this split between work and life as if they are two separate worlds that can never coexist? We are going to expose a false division that may be destroying your ability to experience fulfillment and presence in this very instant, not waiting for some distant future, but right here and now. This division is compartmentalization, the belief that work is something to endure and life is something that happens in the spaces between. It is a subtle, invisible trap that keeps you from experiencing wholeness. And the worst part is that most people spend their entire lives trapped in this division, never realizing there is another way. Because by the end of this video, you will not only understand how this false separation is fragmenting your existence, but you will also discover the most powerful way to live as a unified whole person. And trust me, the final insight is the most important one. It could be the key to unlocking a life where work and play, labor and rest become indistinguishable. Compartmentalization is one of the most destructive patterns modern humans have adopted. It does not always feel like a problem at first. In fact, it often disguises itself as professionalism or the belief that you need to separate work from personal life to maintain sanity. But in reality, it is a slow fracturing of the self. It keeps you from being fully present in any moment. It convinces you that certain hours of your day are for suffering through obligations, while other hours are for actually living. But where does this compartmentalization come from? Why do some people move through life with a sense of wholeness while others feel perpetually divided, as if they become someone else the moment they step into the office or step out of it? The answer lies in a relatively recent development in human history, the Industrial Revolution. Before factories and time clocks, work and life were not separate entities. A farmer did not distinguish between work time and life time. The rhythms of the seasons, the care for animals, the planting and harvesting were all woven into the fabric of daily existence. A craftsman did not punch out at 5 o'clock and become a different person. The work was the life and the life was the work. But industrialization changed everything. Suddenly work became something you did for someone else, in a place that was not your own, during hours that were dictated to you. This created a psychological split. There was the person you had to be at work, and the person you were allowed to be everywhere else. And we have been living with the consequences of that split ever since. The philosopher L.P. Jacks captured this beautifully when he wrote, "The master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he is working or enjoying. To him, he's always doing both. This is not a fantasy. This is not some unattainable ideal reserved for the privileged few. This is a description of what human life can be when you stop fragmenting yourself into pieces and start living as a whole person." But here is the question that most people never ask themselves. If living this way is possible, why do we continue to accept the division? Why do we remain split, even when we know deep down that this fragmentation is costing us something precious? The answer may surprise you. And once you understand it, everything will change. Imagine spending decades of your life in a state of constant waiting. Waiting for Friday. Waiting for vacation. Waiting for retirement. You tell yourself that the hard parts, the meeting, the tasks that drain you, are just what you have to endure to earn the right to live. But what if I told you that this mindset is not just unfulfilling? it is actually making you suffer more. What if the very act of dividing your life into work and life is the source of your stress, your lack of presence, and your inability to find meaning? This is the invisible cost of compartmentalization, and the reason so many people reach the end of their lives wondering where all the time went. But why do we allow this to happen? What is the hidden force that keeps us trapped in this division even when we know that integration would serve us better? To answer this, we need to understand a concept I call the weekend warrior trap. The weekend warrior trap works like this. You endure 5 days of work that you do not love, telling yourself that the weekend will make it all worthwhile. But when the weekend arrives, you are so depleted from forcing yourself through the work week that you spend your free time recovering rather than truly living. You scroll through your phone, watch endless shows, and distract yourself because you do not have the energy left to engage with life fully. And then Monday comes, and the cycle begins again. This trap convinces you that the problem is not enough time off, not enough vacation days, not enough work-life balance. But the truth is, the problem is not the balance. It is the division itself. Have you ever noticed that when you are doing something you genuinely love, time ceases to matter? Hours pass like minutes. You lose yourself in the activity. Abraham Maslow, the humanistic psychologist who studied self-actualized individuals, discovered something remarkable. These people experienced what he called peak experiences, moments of intense absorption and aliveness that occurred not during leisure, but during activities where they were fully engaged and expressing their deepest values. In other words, we are not designed to divide our lives into endurance and escape. We are designed to be fully engaged. But here is the paradox. The longer we accept this division, the harder it becomes to picture life without it. Our brains are wired to seek predictability and avoid uncertainty. Our ancestors relied on routines to survive, ensuring they avoided unnecessary risks. But in the modern world, this instinct often backfires. Instead of protecting us, it keeps us locked in patterns that do not serve us. We become comfortable with the familiar division between work and life even when that division is the very thing draining our vitality. Days turn into weeks, weeks into years, and before we realize it, we have spent the majority of our conscious hours in a state of waiting, waiting for life to begin. This is the true danger of compartmentalization. It does not feel like a threat. It does not come with alarms or warnings. It operates in silence. It whispers in your ear, telling you that this is just how life works, that everyone else is doing the same thing, that you should be grateful to have the weekends. But here is the brutal truth. Living this way is not unavoidable. It is a choice, even if you have never consciously made it. And the longer you accept this division, the more your life becomes a series of obligations punctuated by brief moments of relief, rather than a continuous experience of engagement and meaning. But let's take a step back and ask a deeper question. What is the real cost of living a divided life? What happens when we accept that we must be one person at work and another person everywhere else? Parker Palmer, an educator and author, provides a profound answer to this question in his work on wholeness. He argues that the opposite of wholeness is not brokenness. It is division. When we divide ourselves, we lose integrity in the deepest sense of the word. Integrity comes from the Latin integritas, meaning wholeness or completeness. To live with integrity is not just about being honest. It is about being undivided. It is about bringing your full self to every moment, whether you are in a boardroom or at a dinner table. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly alive? Was it in a moment of waiting for the workday to end, watching the clock and counting down the minutes? Or was it when you were fully absorbed in something, when your attention was completely engaged, when there was no separation between you and what you were doing? The truth is, aliveness is not found in escape. It is created through presence. But here is the question that most people never ask themselves. If presence is the key to aliveness, why do we spend so much of our lives divided, distracted, and disengaged? Why do we accept a life where we are fully present for only a fraction of our days? The answer may surprise you. And once you understand it, everything will change. Imagine going through life feeling like you are playing a role. At work, you put on a mask. You become the employee, the person who follows the rules and meets expectations. But underneath that mask, there is another version of you, the real you, who only emerges when you are not working. You tell yourself that this is necessary, that this is what it means to be responsible. But what if this division is not protecting you? What if it is actually the source of your exhaustion, your stress, and your feeling that something essential is missing from your life? This is what I call identity fragmentation, and it is one of the most powerful forces keeping people trapped in compartmentalized lives. Identity fragmentation happens when you unconsciously believe that you must be different people in different contexts. It is the belief that your work self and your authentic self cannot coexist. And when you believe this, integration becomes impossible. Think about it. If you see yourself as someone who must endure work to earn the right to live, how likely are you to find meaning in your daily tasks? If you believe that your true passions must be kept separate from your obligations, will you ever experience wholeness? Your identity shapes your experience, and your experience reinforces your identity. This is why people remain stuck in divided lives, not because they cannot integrate, but because they do not believe integration is possible for them. Psychologist Carol Dweck, in her research on mindset, discovered that people generally operate from one of two perspectives: a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Those with a fixed mindset believe that their circumstances, their abilities, and even their capacity for fulfillment are unchangeable. In contrast, those with a growth mindset believe that they can develop, adapt, and create new possibilities through effort and intention. Now here is the critical insight. Compartmentalization thrives in a fixed mindset. If you believe that work must always be separate from life, you will never take action to integrate them. But the moment you shift to a growth mindset, when you realize that the way you experience work and life is not fixed but malleable, compartmentalization loses its power over you. So how do you break free from the identity fragmentation that keeps you divided? The answer lies in what I call presence-based integration. Cal Newport, author of Deep Work, explains that the quality of your attention determines the quality of your life. When you bring your full attention to any task, whether it is writing a report, cooking a meal, or having a conversation, that task becomes meaningful. The problem is not the task itself. The problem is the divided attention you bring to it. When you are at work thinking about everything you would rather be doing, you suffer. When you are at home but your mind is still churning through work problems, you suffer. The suffering comes not from the activity but from the division. But there is one more layer to this. Compartmentalization is not just about mindset or attention, it is also about emotional resistance. Many people remain divided because the idea of integration triggers deep fears. Maybe it is the fear that if you bring your whole self to work, you will be vulnerable. Maybe it is the fear that if you stop dividing your life, you will lose your boundaries and become consumed by work. Maybe it is the fear that you are not capable of finding work that truly engages you. Neuroscientists have discovered that the brain treats psychological threats the same way it treats physical threats. When you consider living in a more integrated way, your brain perceives it as danger and activates the amygdala, the part responsible for fear and survival instincts. This is why staying divided often feels easier than attempting integration. Your brain is not trying to sabotage you. It is trying to protect you from the uncertainty of change. But here is the key. You do not need to eliminate fear to move toward integration. You just need to act anyway. Every time you bring full presence to a moment, even when your mind wants to divide you, you rewire your brain. You teach it that wholeness is not a threat. You build what neuroscientists call psychological flexibility, the ability to be present with whatever arises. And the more you do this, the more natural it becomes. So, if compartmentalization is rooted in cultural conditioning, identity fragmentation, and emotional resistance, what is the ultimate way to break free from it? The answer is simple, but most people never realize it. The ultimate way to master the art of living is to embrace what I call mastery through love. This is not the sentimental, passive kind of love. This is active, committed love. The decision to bring care, attention, and presence to whatever you are doing, regardless of whether it feels like work or play. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, and to love." He did not write this as an emperor lounging in luxury. He wrote this while leading armies, managing crises, and facing immense responsibility. He understood that the quality of life is not determined by what you do, but by how you do it. Mastery through love means choosing to be fully present, not because the task is inherently enjoyable, but because presence itself is the source of aliveness. But here is where most people go wrong. They believe that integration means loving every moment, never feeling resistance, and achieving some permanent state of bliss. This is another trap. The truth is, integration is not about eliminating difficulty or discomfort. It is about refusing to divide yourself in response to difficulty. It is about bringing your whole self to every moment, even the challenging ones. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk and teacher, explained this beautifully when he said, "The present moment is the only moment available to us, and it is the door to all moments." When you stop waiting for someday, for retirement, for weekends, for permission, you step through that door. You reclaim your life, not by changing what you do, but by changing how you are with what you do. But what about practical application? How do you actually move from a divided life to an integrated one? First, eliminate the language of division. Stop saying work-life balance and start thinking about life design. Your life is not a seesaw with work on one side and everything else on the other. Your life is a unified whole, and every part of it deserves your full attention. When you are working, work fully. When you are resting, rest fully. When you are with loved ones, be with them fully. The division is not in the activities, it is in your attention. Second, redefine what work means. Work is not something to endure. Work is the opportunity to engage with the world, to create value, to develop mastery. Even if your current job is not your dream job, you can approach it as a craftsman approaches their craft, with care, with attention, with a commitment to excellence. When you bring this mindset to any task, the task transforms. Not because it becomes easier, but because you become more present. Third, design rituals that anchor presence. A ritual is not just a habit, it is a conscious act that signals to your mind and body that you are entering a particular mode of being. Create a morning ritual that helps you enter the day with intention. Create a transition ritual between work and personal time that allows you to shift your energy without fragmenting your identity. Create an evening ritual that helps you close the day with gratitude. These rituals do not add time to your day, they add presence to your time. Finally, commit to making presence your default, not your exception. Most people spend their lives on autopilot, going through the motions, waiting for something to change. But presence does not happen by accident. It is a practice, a choice you make moment by moment. Every time you notice your mind has drifted into division, into wishing you were somewhere else, doing something else, you have an opportunity. You can either reinforce the old pattern by following that thought, or you can choose to return to where you are. And every time you choose to return, you strengthen the muscle of presence. Because life does not wait for you to feel ready. Opportunities do not wait. Time does not wait. The present moment is being shaped right now by how you choose to meet it. So the real question is, what will you do next? Will you continue to live a divided life, waiting for someday when everything aligns perfectly and you finally feel permission to be whole? Or you step fully into this moment and start creating a life where work and play, effort and ease become indistinguishable? The choice is yours. And that choice determines not just what you do, but who you become. If you're feeling the weight of this weekend warrior trap right now, drop a comment below and tell me, what's one area of your life where you're constantly waiting for the right time to truly live? Is it a skill you want to develop? Let's talk about it in the comments, because awareness is the first step to breaking free.